activity. Do you guys remember we talked about that last class? Yes? Okay, do you want me to walk you through that again? I'm going to show you a picture in a second. You do want me to walk you through it again? Okay. I'm going to explain the lesson to you, okay? Ask questions as we go through it, and then I'll have you get started, and I'll be floating around. Please ask me questions. If you're not sure what to do, Alyssa, you said earlier, I was like, how do you feel about this? And you said you were a little confused. You're not sure how to make things make sense. I totally get it. You are having to think in a different way. So just ask me questions. I want that to be part of this whole process. Okay, are you guys ready? Yes. Okay, we're going to start now. Ready? Okay. All right, guys. So we have finished Romeo and Juliet. You made it all the way through all 5 acts. What did you think?
It was
a lot. Well, it was a lot of reading. What were you going to say?
There was a lot of components.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Just what you put on the board, like there's just a lot going on.
Yeah, our character map over here on the board, there's a lot happening, a lot of parallel plots that are taking place. So multiple storylines that are running alongside each other at the same time. Yeah?
I'd say the language is very different than today's language.
How so?
I feel like it's much more formal and more poetic than we use like today.
Yes, Riley.
Well, when they like flirted or whatever, it's just like, what in the world are you talking
What is happening?
They use so much money. They use a lot more metaphors, like more things that like go alike with it that somehow did make sense, but like were completely different things.
Right, a lot of the motifs and the symbolism combined with figurative language. Good job, you guys. You picked up on a whole bunch of ideas that I was hoping that you would glean from that. So we're actually going to put all of those things that you just mentioned together in an activity. Hexagonal thinking, we've talked about this before, we practiced it. We're going to see the connections beyond Romeo and Juliet. Okay, so let's look at exactly what we're going to do today. So there's 3 steps to today's process, and you will be working on this at your tables with your group mates. I'll be observing to make sure that you're all participating, you're all playing a role, and then floating around to ask questions as we go through this, okay? So it is important that even though this is a group project, that everybody is playing their part, doing the job they need to do, okay? So the first thing that you are going to do is to connect your hexagons. You have those larger sheets of paper that you put together, and I've given you 8 to 10 hexagons. If you need more, I will help you with those. But we are going to try to make a web out of 5 hexagons. If you go beyond 5, that's awesome. That means that you're just starting to really make the connections between the different characters and the different motifs and symbols that were taking place in Romeo and Juliet. And you can find those motifs and examples on the sheets of paper that I gave you at your tables. They are color, so they're a little bit more engaging for you. Everybody has a copy of this, but you're only making 1 web as a group, okay? So I gave each of you a set of these so that you could look and have conversations together. Everybody's looking at different things, looking at the same thing to make sure that you all know what's going on. So the idea is that you're going to take one of these icons. Okay, you guys can see them. Characters are these boxes with the silhouettes in them. Then we've got poisons, flowers, violence, day and night, lots of different ideas that take place within Romeo and Juliet. And then things like star-crossed lovers, opposites and contrasts, deceptions and lies. One that we do not have on here that we talked about last class, wishing that we had, is death. So while these can be cut out and put in the center of your hexagons, I also want you to know that you can write death in here as an option, okay? I did not add that icon to your packets, but you can certainly use death as an option, okay? And draw an icon, a symbol that represents that, if that's one that you choose to use. Okay, so how many hexagons are you going to try to find connections for? 5. Bingo. Okay, so let's use poisons and Friar Lawrence and Juliet as an example before we go on, okay? Just make sure everybody's on the same page. So if I put poisons in the middle of this icon, and I decide I'm going to do Friar Lawrence in the middle of this icon, what is the connection between poisons and Friar Lawrence that I'm going to write in this little box right here? Rylan.
Friar Lawrence uses poisons or like different types of herbs to make poisons for like good and bad things.
Very good. Okay, very good. Okay, if I add Juliet to that mix, where would I want to put her? Where do you think? So I've got Friar Lawrence here and poisons there. What do you think?
Would you put her like at the bottom, like in between the two?
Yeah, absolutely. absolutely. Okay, so what's the connection between her and poisons?
Juliet took the potion for her to fall asleep so she could avoid the marriage.
Yes, to Paris, and escape and go be with who?
Romeo.
Where? Good job, Angela. Okay, so what's the connection between Juliet and Friar Lawrence? He gave it to her. So you guys are going to be writing on the little squares that connect to each other. Okay, does that make sense? You guys seem clear on that? Good. Okay, perfect. So you're trying to do 5 of these. I'm going to show you an example of what a completed one in just a second, so you have an idea of what it looks like. So once you've created your hexagon web, you are going to cite with textual evidence. You'll have to go to your textbooks, and you're going to support the relationship that you just explained on those hexagons just off to the side with textual evidence. What do you need to do when you use textual evidence?
Cite.
Bingo. How do you think you should cite this? This is going to be a little different. It's okay.
The line expansion.
Perfect. That's good. I want you to write the act, the scene, and the line number. What would we normally put here?
Author's
Author's last name and the page number, right? We know you're just working on Romeo and Juliet. I want you to be a little more specific, so I'm changing up what your citation looks like today. Good? You have questions about that? Where does the period go? Good job, you guys. Bingo. Very good. Okay, so you cite with textual evidence. Then you're going to do this strategy that we're going to practice right now. This is called the says does. And this goes back to the language that Mia was talking about, being a little bit tricky, a little bit more formal than what we are used to, right? Okay, so here's an example. If you were talking about names and identity and connecting that to Romeo, you might pull out this piece of textual evidence that says, what's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Okay, so that's what we're citing. That's the text that we're using. What the heck does that say? If you were to put it in your own words, what does that mean? Yeah, Ryland.
No matter like what name it has, it's still gonna smell like a rose.
No matter what we call it, it still smells the same, right? No matter what we call it, it still smells like a rose. Still smells the same. Okay, why did he say that line? Why does he say this in the play? Yeah.
Well, because they were like, we can just change your last names, but you would still be the same person.
Yes, and who is he saying that to? Do you guys remember?
Juliet.
Juliet. What was the big confusion there with the names? Yes.
Well, because Juliet's a Capulet and Romeo's a Montague, and their families don't like each other, so they can't be together.
So they cannot be together. So he says, I'll change my name. I'll still be me even if I change my name. Okay? So that's what I want you to write right here. Why do they say this? How does this advance the plot? Or what does this tell us about the character? Okay? And again, this is a strategy that as you advance with me in English classes in future years, we will use this quite a bit. Okay? So why does the character say this? To remind Juliet.
So then they could be together?
Then they could be together. That he'll still be Romeo even if he changes his name. Who she loves. We'll put a heart next to his name. Loves. And then they can be together. You guys are exactly right. Okay, so you're just going to write the textual evidence off to the side of the relationship. If you need to draw a line to it, that's great. Then I want you to write says does, and then explain what it says in your own words. Okay, put it into modern language for us. Texting language can be appropriate for that. And why does the character say this? Okay, you guys good on that?
Yeah.
Okay, before I let you go and start to work on this, questions? Yes.
So, like, the thing with Friar Lawrence, Romeo, and, like, the poisons, is that, like, one?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no, those are 3 different tiles. So you just need to add 2 more tiles.
Oh, and then
Okay.
that's, like, the 5?
Yep.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay, Rylan.
When you have like the 2 together and then there's like the connected, what do you put in these ones?
Nothing unless you have something that it connects to off to the
Okay.
side. Good?
Yeah.
Does that make sense, you guys? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for all the tiles, like, can we use like all people? I know that's not
Yes.
exactly ideal. But
No,
do
you
we have to use
absolutely
everything?
can because there are some great connections on relationships that we see unfold that are taking place at the same time throughout the entire place. So absolutely. Okay.
Could you like cut out a person twice and put it on there? If like something's full?
I would like you to try to use 5 different icons. Good question. Yeah, I want you to try to expand this a little bit more. And again, you can do more than 5. If you really get going and you're like, this is kind of fun, I like seeing these connections, do it, okay? A minimum of 5. Other questions? Everybody's on track? Okay, great. Get started. The hexagons are cut out for you. Cut away. Okay, so
What? So like, since we have to have 5, do we just keep connecting or do we do another?
I want them all to connect somehow, but if you put something here with size, that's fine. They don't have to connect like at these points. You can take one this way,
Okay.
and then another one here. That's fine, okay? Good. Good job, thank Yeah, very good. Keep going. On the bottom, it shows you. How's it going? Questions? Okay. Really? You feel okay? Are you only using characters?
No, we're using poison potions, and then we're probably gonna do a next one.
Yeah. Good job. Yeah. Draw me a fun icon. Okay. Sound good? Outline and write a piece of textual evidence that supports the relationship that you just described. Good. And then do the says does above.
Was this fight in Act 3?
Oh yeah, no, it's right here, it's right here. You got it?
It makes your brain work in a different way, right? Yeah, that's good.
It makes you think about like specific parts.
Yes, good job.
Like about
That's right.
Juliet, one of you connected.
What if you tried this?
okay.
Why is the
And then we
Whoa! Look what you did! Okay, are you happy with Are you happy with this connection? What does it mean to be star-crossed lovers?
like short numbers.
I mean that it comes
Or what's another word for that that starts with F?
because the other stuff comes on purple.
Is it like metaphor?
Yeah.
Like, what's the word for that?
Destiny?
Yeah.
Destiny thou hast done. Okay, so now with your own words, I want you to explain this connection, like the relationship between Tybalt. You got the textual evidence here, that's great, okay? But explain the relationship between violence and Tybalt. Good?
Tybalt's, oh yeah.
And then draw an arrow and do the says does. Did any good come out of their death?
Yeah. Like making new friends.
Oh yeah. Not really friends,
But they're like colleagues. They're not
so did you practice it, that analytical part of it? You guys were fantastic. Holy cow. Pumpkin bars and chocolate chip cookies on Wednesday. What's my secret ingredient? I did it! You guys did great. Okay, will you please make sure your names are on the sheets and that all of your guys' clean up and then cheers.